Okay, the next speaker I am so proud to also to be introducing is someone that I've listened to with on conference calls. I have met personally and listened to at meetings in the Naperville area. And come on up, Steve, if you would, please. See Stephen. We became involved with the Illinois Tea Party, and their link is on our Quincy Tea Party website. And kind of right after the Tea Party all started, when we weren't, when one individual was not allowed to talk at a city council meeting, I started becoming engaged with that group up there. So I'm going to let Steve tell a little bit more about himself. He has such a great message, and I am honored to introduce you to all of us here, and this is Steve Tucker.
Wow, what a great crowd. This is great. I've been speaking all over the Midwest for the last 3 years since the worst piece of legislation in U.S. history was passed, without one Republican vote, on Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2009. And I started reading the legislation because I've been in this business, in the health insurance business, for 17 years. And I've been writing on health insurance policy for many years before this health care law passed. And so before it was passed, I kept hearing the president twist the truth. Now, is it okay if I call him a liar this evening? I don't have to be political. Okay. The president is a liar. And I'm going to tell you why he's a liar. Because when you call the president of the United States a liar, you should back it up with facts. And so it's my opinion he's the greatest liar since the father of the lie. And I mean that in a biblical sense. I find myself even today watching him, and he's so good at it, I have to go back and fact check. Wait, oh no, he's still lying. So I'm going to go over with you the 5 biggest lies the president told. 4 of them were used to pass this legislation and fool, unfortunately, a big enough majority of the population to support his health care law in the name of several things. In the name of health care reform. Then, of course, that wasn't polling well because we demonized the doctors in hospitals. That doesn't go well, so then it changed it, remember, to health insurance reform. Everyone's had a problem with their insurance company. So that was much better at the polls. So I'm going to go over the 4 things he told us, and then I'm going to go over the biggest lie that he's telling today. And it's very important that we understand that it is a lie, and then how we can defend someone who's running for Vice President of the United States, Paul Ryan, against the vicious lies from the left regarding what he's going to do to Medicare. So, first of all, before the legislation passed, do you remember the number of American uninsured? It kept climbing and climbing. Remember, it was 20 million, then it was 25 million, then it was 30 million, 35 million, then it was 40 million, then it was 45 million, then it was 50 million American uninsured, and then Anthony Weiner, out of left field, which of course where he would come from, said it would be 100 million. There are 100 million uninsured. And then they took a Harvard study, completely twisted it, and said there are 45,000 people doing what? Dying in the streets every year. Who remembers that, right? Because they don't have health insurance. Completely ignoring a law set by the Department of Labor in the 80s that said if you're within 500 feet of any emergency room, they have to treat you, right? Let's just skip that and just tell everyone 45,000 people are dying in the streets. So there was a question that no one seemed to ask about the American uninsured, and that was, who are these people? Let's agree that there's 50 million people. In fact, the U.S. Census Bureau agrees there are 50 million American uninsured. My question was, who are they? Who comprise these people? So the U.S. Census Bureau, after confirming that indeed there are 50 million uninsured in this country, it then went beyond every other person and told us precisely who these people are. Let me share it with you. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, half of the uninsured are temporarily uninsured for 4 months. Does that sound like a chronically uninsured situation? You know who those people are? I had a job which had health insurance. I lost the job. Now I'm looking for another job. It's about 3-4 months. I found another job. They took 25 million of those people and put them into the 50 million column. So we got to cut that number in half. Not us, the United States Census Bureau does. Now, what's left? We have 25 million left. Who are they? According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 38% of them can afford to purchase health insurance, but they choose not to do so. 17 million of them make more than $50,000 a year, and 9 million of them make more than $75,000 a year. Do they sound like indigent, poor people who need the taxpayer to pay for their health insurance? No. And you know how they always said it was 50 million American uninsured? Oh yes, guess what? 12 million are illegal aliens. That's right. So now we get down to the real number of uninsured in this country. Guess how many? 10 million people. Do you think it's possible, just possible, that we can insure 10 million people for less than $2.6 trillion? You think so? Yes, you could. In fact, you can do it without spending a dime. The cover of Time magazine in 2010, another piece of random act of journalism that was ignored, was performed by Time magazine. They told us how much waste is in the American medical system. Did you know it was $680 billion a year? If we asked government to just be half efficient, because they'll never be totally efficient, just half efficient, and we asked them to cut just half of that waste, you could take that half and buy 100 million Americans a health insurance policy that would make Blue Cross Blue Shield green with envy for the rest of their life. So cutting waste would enable us to afford to insure these 10 million people for the rest of their life. Not just 10, but 100 million. So if we could do it for free, right? There's not really 50 million uninsured, and we could certainly perform it for less than $2.6 trillion. What in God's name is this 2,400-page healthcare bill really about? It is about one thing: control. That's it. And I'm going to prove that to you tonight. The second biggest lie the president told. We gotta pass this bill to back that up. I lost my place. We gotta pass this bill to lower premiums by $2,500 a year. Who remembers that exact statement? With probably that many us. $2,500 a year was the promise if we passed his healthcare legislation. In reality, I'm going to give you an example of what the president means by cutting health insurance premiums for a family of 4 by $2,500 a year. 6 months after Obamacare passed, it passed on March 23rd, 2010. 6 months after, one of the most onerous regulations passed, called the medical loss ratios. Who's heard of the medical loss ratios? MLRs. One person. 2 people. Every American should know what the MLRs are. Tonight you're going to know. We have lost 20 health insurance companies in this nation since the legislation passed. And the reason we've lost them is because of the medical loss ratios. On September 23rd, 2010, Kathleen Sebelius, who loves to write, yeah, she loves to write. She writes all the time. If you're angry about a 2,400-page healthcare bill, just think about the 35,000 pages that have been added to it since it passed in just regulations. That's Sebelius, just writing all day long by herself, right? So the medical loss ratios kicked in, which was another interim final ruling, and it stated that if you are a health insurance company in America and you underwrite more than 50 people, you must reduce your operating margin, not your profit margin, your total operating margin down to 15%. Now, the bigger insurance companies in this nation would run at about a 25%, some of them 30% as an industry standard. You have 4 months to comply with this new ruling. So they had to go down from 30 or 25 to 15 in less than 4 months. So by January 1st, 2011, you had to be compliant. Do you know what Humana did right away? They fired 4,000 employees. Since this law, by the way, have you heard that in the lamestream, lapdog, fully compliant, forward off the cliff media? Anything? Crickets. Second, since that happened, 19 other companies have decided to fold and go out of the business. 13 of them in Iowa alone. So, I want to give you an example of what else they did. Remember the second lie. We got to pass this bill to lower your premiums by $2,500. I have never in 17 years seen health insurance premium increases this high. A bad year for my group clients, a bad year with a lot of claims, was 10%. And they were moaning about 10%. These are the lowest. I'm going to go from the lowest to the highest. that I've received from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois since 9/23/2010. Ready? Lowest, 30.17%. That's the lowest. Where is it? There's so many. 30.17%. This is an actual renewal premium for Blue Cross Blue Shield for one of my clients. That's the lowest. Here we go. Next, 31.35%. 31.35%. Next, 35.63%. And the granddaddy of them all, drumroll please, 44.78%. Do you think that this small business owner kept his plan with a 45% rate increase? Which brings me to the third biggest lie. If you like your plan, you keep your plan, and no one's going to take it away from you, period. Right?
No.
That's a direct quote. Who remembers that? Right? What happens when an employer gets a 44.78% rate increase? Do you think his employees lost their plan? I guarantee you they did. Guaranteed. But it's worse than that. What happens when someone loses their health insurance, when their health insurance company goes out of business because of Obamacare? I'm going to take you back 11 years. 11 years ago, I sat with a family in Naperville, Illinois, and I explained to them the concept of a consumer-driven tax-qualified health insurance plan. And they thought it was a brilliant idea. In fact, they heard this guy, watched this guy on TV with a nice mustache named John Stossel. And John Stossel had his ABC show, right? And he would investigate consumer interest, right? Before he had his Fox Business show. And he decided to interview John Mackey. John Mackey is the CEO of Whole Foods. And John Mackey had heard of a guy named Bill Archer. And Bill Archer is a senator from Texas. And Senator Bill Archer, in the early 1990s, decided to approach the insurance industry and find a way to lower health insurance premiums. There's got to be a way. So he lobbied the insurance industry. The insurance industry had one answer, and they answered very quickly: kill the copay. And Senator Archer goes, kill the copay? What do you mean kill the copay? The insurance industry said, when it is $10 for every medical service, there is no correlation to the policyholder and the real cost of health care if it's only $10. So it leads to overuse of the health care plan and detaches them from the real cost of the service provided. So kill the copay. Get the policyholder involved in the real cost of health care. Make them start negotiating for the cost of health care. Make them start asking the price of medical service provided, right? So Mackey said, my God, that's fantastic. What else? What else can we do? The insurance industry said, let's get rid of the individual deductible per person. Instead of you got 3 members in a family worrying about satisfying each their own deductible in the hospital, get rid of that. Make it one deductible for the whole family, make it aggregate. So once that deductible is satisfied, the rest of the family has 100% coverage, as well as you do, for the rest of the year. So they thought that was a great idea. Senator Archer agreed, and they implemented that program. And then Senator Archer came back and said, well, how much could you really save on an average? The answer in the 90s was $200 a month on health insurance. So Archer said, my God, that's a lot of money. Why don't you give them an impetus to save that money? Put it somewhere. So was devised the world's first medical IRA. Today, we call it a health savings account. And so, this family, 11 years ago, oh, I forgot to tell you, Mackey got his own show on Fox Business, right? 4 years later. And so, they decided to bring in John Mackey's former employees. You see, when John Mackey canceled their regular health insurance plan and replaced it with an HSA qualified plan, they lost their $10 copay. Oh my God, that's it. This is the worst thing you could possibly do, to you evil CEO. So outside, you can pull this all up on YouTube, outside of every Mackey Whole Foods, he's an evil CEO, he took our $10 copay, with their signs, right? So he decided, John Stossel, 4 years later, let's bring them all back. Bring them into the audience, and let's put John Mackey front and center. Now we'll just have Mackey's audience, his employees of the audience. So he played the videos of them protesting outside of Mackey's office. They're all kind of like this in the audience. You'll see them in the video, kind of embarrassed, right? And then they said, employees, would anyone like to stand up and tell me what you think of your CEO today? And one of them stood up and says, I love my CEO. And they said, why do you love your CEO now? You hated him 4 years ago. Because I have $8,462 in my HSA account. Another one stands up. I've got $11,648 in my HSA account. You see, what Maggie did is when he canceled his traditional health insurance plan and saved all that money, instead of pocketing it, he paid each one of his employees and put it in their HSA accounts. Now you're wrapping fish for $9 an hour, and you've got $8,000 in tax-deferred, triple compounding money. Now they love him. But it changed their behavior too. You see, now when they need a physical, they call the doctor's office, they open the phone book, and they say, hi, I'm coming in for a physical. What do you charge? And the medical provider goes, we don't know, do you have insurance? Yes, I have insurance. Well, what do you care then? I care, now give me the price. We don't know what the price is. Click, they call the next person. What do you charge? Why do they want to know what they charge? Because whatever they don't spend is theirs to keep. You see, it rolls over every year. If you never use it, it's your retirement money. So, guess what? This family that I met 11 years ago did that, did everything right. The problem is, they picked the wrong insurance company. You see, their insurance company is one of the 20 that folded after Obamacare passed. Now, normally, that wouldn't be a problem. The only problem was she was in the middle of treatment for infiltrating ductal carcinoma, which is the most severe breast cancer any woman can suffer from. Now, 11 years ago, she did the right thing. Bought a $5,000 deductible plan with 100% coverage afterward, knew she could manage her health care costs because she did the right thing. She had over $50,000 in tax-deferred, triple compounding money that she would have spent on a more expensive low copay plan. So she was ready. Then she gets this letter after the president's health care law passed from Guarantee Trust Life Insurance Company in Glenview, Illinois. Notice of termination of your insurance coverage. The purpose of this letter is to provide you with important information regarding your major medical coverage with Guarantee Trust Life Insurance Company. The letter is intended to provide notice of an action Guarantee Trust will be taking that will result in the termination of all major medical plans in your state. Will I be offered a replacement plan? Yes, we're required by law and the terms of your policy to offer you replacement coverage. The replacement plan will be a high deductible major medical plan. A high deductible major medical plan is a type of plan that doesn't begin to pay for any covered charges until such charges exceed your new deductible. Remember what the deductible was? $5,000 for the whole family, 100% afterward. Until such charges exceed your new deductible of $25,000 per person. Per person. Not an HSA plan, a traditional stopgap plan. That's what they were offering. So imagine going through cancer treatment, seeing your oncologist, MRI, CT scans, all sorts of invasive treatment to save your life, and the president takes your health care plan away. What did he say, line number 3? If you like your plan, you can keep your plan, and no one will take it away from you. The president is a liar. What did I do with her, by the way, when her health insurance was canceled and she was going through cancer treatment? What happens when you lose your health insurance plan? Are you, line number 4, left with no options if you are denied coverage for health insurance? That's another lie. Where did pre-existing conditions come from? Anyone know? I ask that question as people go, if I'm debating our friends on the left, of which I have none, they'll say, it comes from the evil insurance company, they want to deny you coverage because that's what the president said. In reality, Congress created pre-existing conditions. And Congress created pre-existing conditions in the year 1996. In 1996, HIPAA law was written. Who's heard of HIPAA law? When you think of HIPAA law, what's the only thing you think of? Privacy. Did you know that privacy is not even in the acronym? HIPAA stands for Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. There's no privacy in that acronym. A far more important part of HIPAA law was portability, that third word. Portability has protected 90% of the American insured in this nation for 16 years against any pre-existing conditions. Now, even if you don't know the law, is anybody in this room, by a show of hands, went for a job interview and the job interviewer asks you how heavy you are? what medications you're currently taking and what are their dosages. Does your family have a history of heart disease, cancer? Any employer ever asked you that? No. Why? Because it's illegal. It's been illegal for 16 years to discriminate against people because of pre-existing conditions. When you leave a job that had group health insurance, they got to give you a certificate of credible coverage. You got 63 days to find another job. When you do, you give them that certificate of credible coverage. It proves you've been insured for 18 months, right? You've had no lapse of more than 63 days. They are under law obligated to cover your pre-existing conditions from day one, even if you're 9 months pregnant and it's about to pop. They got to pay for it, okay? So then I remember speaking like this about this. I have one of our friends on the left, again, which I have not, in the audience, and they'll go, what if you get to the 64th day? If you get to the 64th day, then you wait 64 days on your new health insurance plan, and then they have to cover all your pre-existing conditions. This is HIPAA portability law, and it's protected 90% of the uninsured, of the American insured for 16 years. Where did Congress create pre-existing conditions? As often is the case, our omnipotent rulers in Washington, D.C. don't always get it right. And when they wrote this law, they didn't extend any portability protection to the individual policyholder. Today, individual policyholders comprise 14 million Americans. There has been a flight from corporate America. People have gone on their own in record numbers since 1996, home-based businesses, etc. These people, if they buy an individual plan, they can be denied coverage for pre-existing conditions if they're too heavy, if they're on too many medications, if they have cancer. It can happen. Do you know how you solve that problem? One sentence. You add one sentence to existing HIPAA portability law, and here's what it says. All individual plans are now protected under existing HIPAA portability law. Done! No more pre-X. Does that take 2,400 pages? No. Does it take one page? No. It takes one sentence, and you have solved the problem of pre-existing conditions forever. There's no more problem. And in fact, those people should be protected against pre-existing conditions even more than big group policyholders. Do you know how maddening it is to know the solution that is one sentence, and for the last 4 years, listen to this president? I should be in a rubber room with a jacket with much longer sleeves. Now, I want to discuss with you what has happened since the president had a little interview with George Snuffleupagus from ABC News. Do you remember the interview? It's rather famous now, where George Snuffleupagus had the dictionary pulled out, and he said, because he's short, Mr. President, I pulled up the dictionary, and what you're doing by forcing people to buy health insurance is actually a tax, because this is what it says a tax is. Do you know what Obama's response was? I reject that definition. Only Barack Obama can reject the definition of something in the dictionary. And why did he have to reject the definition of the word tax in the dictionary? Because he knew only a few short months later, his ambulance chaser attorneys will be arguing that what he is doing is indeed a tax. You see, the president is a liar. So, here's what happens. Right before the law passed, do you remember that there was another journalist who committed a random act of journalism in front of Edith the Dingbat Pelosi? Doesn't she remind you of Edith the Dingbat?
The unpassed bill, aren't you the final lieutenant?
This reporter was sitting in front of that idiot, and he asked her, is it true, Miss Pelosi, that you're going to put us in jail if we don't buy health insurance? Who remembers, right? Yeah. And of course, she hemmed and hawed, wouldn't answer the question like a perfect politician. And so it turns out that the Tea Party rose up. We found out about this. Nationwide, we rose up. And guess what? We won. And they pulled it out of the legislation. All they were going to do is take the fine in the IRS code that says if you don't pay your taxes, what happens? Fines are accrued, right? Interest is accrued on top of the fines. And after 5 years, you become Wesley Snipes. And you go to jail. right? So they didn't have to write anything. They just took that out of the IRS code and then plopped it in Obamacare, hoped that no one was looking. But the Tea Party was looking. So they pulled it out. Big victory for us. It presented a unique problem to our statist in chief, Barack Obama. Because now he can't force you by penalty of law if you refuse to buy health insurance, right? There's no criminal penalties. There's no criminal fines. It's gone. In fact, the USA Today front page. No one read this. IRS lacks clout to enforce mandatory health insurance. Starting in 2014, the agency will have another task, making sure all Americans have health insurance. Under the law, Americans who cannot afford to purchase health insurance, to purchase health insurance but refuse to buy it will face a penalty of, who knows what the fine is in 2014 if you don't buy health insurance? Anyone?
$675.
Oh no, $95. That's it, 95, right? It goes to $695 by 2016. I'll tell you how dumb that is in a minute. More than 4 million Americans could be subject to penalties by 2016 if they fail to obtain health insurance, the Congressional Budget Office said last week. While the IRS can impose liens or levies, seize property, or seek jail time if you refuse to pay your taxes, they're specifically barred from doing so if you don't buy health insurance. So let me ask you something. Once this was done, and we won on that issue, Barack Obama had to scratch his head and figure, what am I going to do to force them to buy health insurance? I know what I'll do. I'll use the IRS. And the IRS will hold your tax refund if you don't buy health insurance. That's brilliant, right? How many people in this country on a percentage basis actually pay income tax? 53% of us. 47% pay no income taxes. How do you hold a refund from somebody that pays no taxes? So who's really going to be paying for all of this? The few, the proud, the 53% of us. Is that rocket science? No. You see, we're smarter than them. Lastly, on the health insurance topic, we all thought, and I hoped and prayed, that the U.S. Supreme Court would do the right thing. And they would stop this legislation from going forward. I really support the movement. That was just an accident. We thought that they would stop this legislation dead in its tracks. And then we found out that the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, John Roberts, was the swing vote. You see, we had 4 left-wing loons, which would be over here on the left, right? And then we had 3 conservatives, 1, Kennedy, who knows, right? But Kennedy was solid, and for 30 days he argued with Roberts. What are you doing? What are you doing? There's no precedent for this. You see what Roberts did, all by himself, kind of like the president. If I can't get this done, I'll just do it myself. Has a president ever said that in U.S. history? If I can't get this done, we can't get Congress to do it, I'll just do it myself. What? Roberts did the same thing. Roberts created a taxing power, a new one, all by himself. All by himself. And you will not find this taxing power anywhere in Article 1, Section 8 of the enumerated powers of our Constitution, because it doesn't exist. He didn't even name it. It's not an excise tax, right? It's not a capital gains tax, right? It's not an income tax. It's I named it myself, the Roberts tax. Let me share with you how it works. You go into a 7-Eleven, and the clerk says, "Hello, sir. Would you like a pack of gum?" You politely decline. Then he hits you for the $2.50 Roberts tax for non-compliance. This is what he's done, right? How is it going to affect people? The IRS right now is ramping up. We just spent $330 million just recently, this year, to hire thousands of new Internal Revenue Service agents who will now be able to audit your employer if you have health insurance, or audit you and determine how many months that you've been compliant and purchased health insurance, and then fine you if you don't purchase health insurance. But we know it's not a fine, it's the Roberts tax. And if you're an employer and you do the wrong thing and you grow your business, and now you've got 50, boom, that's the trigger point. Now, if any of those employees, if you charge them 2.5% more of their annual income to help you pay for health insurance, they get to go to the Obamacare exchanges and get health insurance. And you get to pay a $2,000 fine. And if you don't offer any health insurance, you pay a $3,000 fine. Now that sounds like a lot. Let me tell you something. I have business owners sitting down with me that can't wait for 2014. They can't wait for it. Because a $2,000 fine is a fraction of the cost to maintain health insurance for their employees today. You think more people might lose your plan? Yes, millions more will be losing their health insurance plan, and they will be booted off into the Obamacare exchanges, where the president has redefined the term poor. You see, the president and Blago have a lot in common. I wish he was making our license plates too. Blago, when he was governor, like Democrats and Rhino Republicans often do, when they get money, they like to spend it. And they like to spend it pandering for votes, you see. So what Blago did in Illinois is when he got the S-chip money, back up, Steve, what's the S-chip money? The federal S-chip bill was supported and passed under Bush, supported by both parties, that said if you are a child of the truly indigent, the truly poor, you should have health insurance paid for by the taxpayer. Both parties agreed, funded it with billions of dollars. All the states started getting all the money for free health insurance under Medicaid, an expansion of Medicaid for kids. In Illinois, we called it Kid Care, right? All these other states got it too. Obama became president. In 2009, he put $36 billion more into it, shoved it out to the states. Now, most reasonable governors kept that program isolated just to children of the poor. Not Blago. No. You see, Blago illegally, without any approval from our House or Senate, decided to create 2 new programs attached to our All Kids program. It was called Kid Care. He calls it All Kids Covered now. But it's not just All Kids Covered. He made moms and babies. And it sounds great, moms and babies. If you're 8 months pregnant, you're on your 4th child, you can go to the state of Illinois and we'll pay for your maternity. And then we'll pay for your child. And then we'll pay to keep you insured too, right? So Blago said, God, I'm getting a lot of votes, this is fantastic. You know what? Daddy should have health insurance too. So I'm going to create family care. And then daddy can come in and all he has to do is provide a utility bill that shows he's living with the mother of the child, and daddy gets free health insurance too. But you see, nothing's free. Nothing. And thanks to what Blago did, by 2020, the state of Illinois will have a $23 billion outstanding Medicaid debt. That's not our public pensions, guys, which is another $84 billion. Just our Medicaid. And you know what's worse? Every state that has a Medicaid program has a TPA, a third-party administrator. And the third-party administrator every year sends out a letter and says, hello, are you still alive? You're not? Then get off our Medicaid program. Have you moved from Illinois? You have? Then get off our Medicaid program. We had a pharmacist from Kentucky, just recently, gave a testimony in our Illinois House. And she said, some of my best customers are Illinois Medicaid recipients. What? So the Democrats and 15 Rhino Republicans just passed their Medicaid reform bill. They're going to fix everything. We're going to come together, like Tammy Duckworth says, roll up our sleeves, kumbaya, right? Here's what really happened. They have not yet, even in this Medicaid reform bill, we got a TPA now, right? So the TPA is going to say, are you dead yet? Are you dead? Or you're not here, you're not living it, right? It still doesn't ask the one question. Are you an American citizen? Are you an American citizen? The Chicago Tribune decided to commit another random act of journalism. And they knew that Chicago was a sanctuary city where illegals can come and wear their Che Guevara signs and they can't be deported by ICE. So they already knew there was a giant magnet sitting in the city of Chicago. So they said, yeah, I wonder how many on that program are here illegally. Can't be that many, right? Who would like to guess the percentage?
30.
Keep going. Oh, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. 75%. And even under Quinn, there are still 77,000 illegal aliens on our Illinois Medicaid system. And because of this, we have American citizens who are truly indigent, who cannot get prescription drugs for their children with special needs right now. Cannot see specialists right now because of what Blago did to Medicaid. And no one's even asking them to get off the plan. So, Barack Obama did the same thing. You see, Blago jacked up the qualifications to get onto welfare and Medicaid. 138% above the federal poverty level for an individual, and 400% for a family of four. What does that mean in dollars and cents? That means a family of four making $90,000 a year can get taxpayer-subsidized health insurance in the new Obamacare exchanges. That's not poor. In fact, the last CBO assessment says that there will be a minimum of 17 million people added to our Medicaid system. Probably closer to 25 million people. Why is that really bad? This is where I get to Medicare. If you're a senior and you voted for Barack Obama's hopes and chains, you should be ashamed of yourself. Because what they have done to Medicare and what they're about to do to Medicaid is one of the most immoral things a government has ever done to its citizenry. Who's heard of Richard Foster? Anybody? Should be a household name. Richard Foster is the chief Medicare actuary. He's as high as you can go in the government's Medicare office. Every year he has to give an actuarial opinion of where our Medicare system is going. He said in his assessment that not only has the president cut $716 billion from Medicare. You see, they like to put those commercials together, our friends on the left, of which I have none. And it's Paul Ryan, and he's pushing grandma, right? Right over the cliff. Democrats, keeping it classy, right? The reality is the person pushing that wheelchair looks more like Alfred E. Newman with a good tan. You see, it's Barack Obama who is pushing that senior off the cliff. No president in U.S. history has cut $716 billion from the Medicare program. And the most offensive thing is that he has cut it to give it to people who have never paid into Medicare. Not a dime, not a plug nickel. And it's worse than that. Foster's assessment, by the year 2020, the Obamacare legislation will cut a total of $4.95 trillion from Medicare. That is ending Medicare as we know it. They have already ended Medicare as we know it with Obamacare. But the worst part of Foster's assessment is that he states unequivocally that the government will reduce the amount that they pay to doctors who take Medicare today to less than what it pays to doctors who take Medicaid. If you're a doctor in Illinois, you haven't been paid by Medicaid for a very long time, and what you are paid is an insult. That is extremely troubling. Why? Remember this. 2005, American Academy of Cardiology did a study to determine the survival rate of people on surgery who are on Medicaid, people who need surgery on private health insurance. The shocking result in 2005, according to the American Academy of Cardiology, is that you are 50% more likely to die after that surgery on Medicaid than you are if you have private health insurance. Why? Doctors aren't being paid, which means you're not getting any follow-up care, right? So as soon as that study came out, big government, oh my God, we can't have our Medicaid system with 50%, oh, we can't do that. We have to fix that. So we're gonna put more big government on it to fix it, right? Fast forward 4 years, University of Virginia does a follow-up study. In that year, 2009, you're now 97% more likely to die after surgery on Medicaid than you are with private health insurance. And these studies were completed before Obamacare. Before, according to the CBO, we flood that bankrupt, broken system with 17 to 25 million more Americans. You don't have to use hyperbolic statements like Sarah Palin with the death panels. You just have to get a government-sized calculator and run the numbers. If we're flooding the system come 2014 with 70 to 25 million people with a nice new shiny Medicaid card, just because you have a Medicaid card does not mean that you're going to get access to care. Because our doctors are already overburdened and understaffed and underpaid. Our doctors in Illinois are being pulled in 3 directions. One, Medicaid. They don't get paid nothing. Over here, Medicare. Reimbursement ratios are even lower and lower. The president just cut it by $416 billion. You see, $416 billion of the $716 billion was reductions in pay to doctors, hospitals, and home health care clinics. So their Medicare reimbursements are low. That's why the Mayo Clinic, remember in 2009, before Obamacare, no more Medicare. Why? Because reimbursement ratios already were too low. So they're pulled here with lower and lower Medicare reimbursement ratios, pulled here with Medicaid, treating a ton of free people, and they're being pulled back here. By who? The attorneys. We have no lawsuit reform. We have no tort reform in this state. In fact, that crazy right-wing nut job, Howard Dean, please tell me you know he's not a right-wing nut job. Howard Dean told us why we don't have any tort reform in Obamacare. Ready? This is a quote from Howard Dean. We don't have tort reform in Obamacare because we didn't want to piss off the trial lawyers.
He told the truth.
He told the truth. So, our doctors, especially our OB-GYNs, they're just jumping ship. We're going to Indiana, Iowa, Ohio. We're done. We're done. You take those doctors and flood the system with 17 to 25 million more, you're in serious trouble. What about the health insurance industry, Steve? What's going to happen to them? Why is health insurance so expensive? The president always says it's because the evil insurance companies, they want to charge you money and rake you through the coals, right? He never talks about Apple's profit margin, but the insurance industry, right? It is not about evil health insurance companies raking you over the coals. It's about mandates. In 1979, there were a total of 279 mandates nationwide on every health insurance company in this nation. 279. Those mandates were, if you come in our state and you sell health insurance, you better cover cancer. Okay, we'll do that. That makes sense, right? Who would like to guess how many federally imposed mandates we now have on the most regulated industry in America, the health insurance industry? Just throw me a number, sir.
I think it's 4,000.
Almost. Cut it down and then add 316. It's 2,316 mandates. Now, either 2,000 new conditions have evolved since 1979 that are medically necessary, or we're being forced to cover stuff that's not medically necessary. How big is 2,316? It's that big. It's that big. This is why health insurance costs so much money. Let me read you some of these things. Because you think, oh, yeah, leukemia should be covered, right? That makes sense. Oh no, here we go. Ready? Hair plugs. Why are we paying for hair plugs? And if we paid for Biden's, we got ripped off. Next, health club memberships. Why do we pay for health club memberships? What else? Infertility. You know you pay about 30% more in Illinois for infertility, even if you don't have the proper plumbing below your navel to even have a child? You're going to pay more. And then the worst state, the worst, is California. The land of fruit and nuts. You see, in California, there's about 6 health insurance carriers left. There are 1,300 in this nation. They don't want to sell in California. You know why? All 4 University of California campuses, including UC Berkeley, guess what's a mandated covered expense on their policies?
Birth control.
Oh no, that's a president's obsession. Oh no, it's worse. Coverage to turn your Audi into an innie. And I don't mean your belly button. Right. Sex change, right. Is that medically necessary? I don't think so. Unless you're RuPaul. But everybody has to pay more. So you know what happens? The insurance companies say, bye. We've got 56 other states who do business, and if you're Barack Obama, or 49 other if you're a normal person. Right? This is why it's so expensive, right? And other things, archaic laws, like the McCarran-Ferguson Act of 1945, that prohibits insurers from selling their products in all 50 states. Get rid of it. Get rid of the special preferential treatment you give to business funded health insurance, employer-sponsored health insurance. They get to write off their whole premium. Self-employed? Not even close. Stop it. Stop the crony capitalism, the favoritism between one or the other. Make it the same across the board. Now, the last two things that John Roberts gave us, besides the Roberts tax, right, was community rating and guaranteed issue. Both of them will destroy the remaining health insurance companies in this nation within 3 to 5 years. Remember I said that, if we don't stop this. The only ones remaining will become heavily taxpayer-subsidized utilities. Here's why. Barack Obama's healthcare law says that you don't have to keep health insurance coverage because that would be tough. Like constantly paying premiums, that's way too much responsibility. So you can wait until you're sick, and then you can buy a plan. And then as soon as your treatment is over for that condition, you can dump the plan and wait till you need more treatment and buy it again on a guaranteed issue basis. You know why HIPAA portability laws work so well? Because when people call me and they lose their job, they're looking for another plan, they're terrified to get past the 63 days. When they get past the 63 days, what do they got to face? Pre-existing conditions, right? Barack Obama says, you just wait. Just wait. Let me equate that to homeowners insurance. Let's say you've got a beautiful $480,000 home, which was worth $800,000 before Barack Obama, right? And you don't have homeowners insurance on it. And then it burns down, and you call State Farm and say, hi, I'd like a policy to rebuild my pile of ashes, please. It's the same thing. It's actuarially impossible, right? The second is community rating. Now, in order for me to explain community rating to you, you need to sever your skull, because brain is not necessary. You need to think like a liberal, just with this, because we all know they're big-hearted. Just work with this, that's it. No brain. It's detached now, okay? You're a liberal legislator, you've come into a state, and you start purveying the health insurance industry, and you go, there's some people in this state paying more for health insurance than those people over there. That's not fair.
Yeah.
And it sounds all kind of smart, right? Fair and equitable. So let's just level it all out so all of you are paying the same premium. That's only fair, right? Now you put your skull back on, okay? Because that community rating has failed in all 12 states they tried it in. Here's how it works, right? Everyone's got to pay the same premium now. So now you have the 27-year-old Occupy Wall Street member who has to buy his health insurance plan, right? Because he's passed the failure to launch clause, which is 26, that's what I call it, keeping your kid on to your 26, which, by the way, you could do for many years before Obamacare in almost every state. Your kids could stay on your plan until 25, 26, 28, 30, for years before Obamacare. So the next time our friends on the left, which I have none, try to use that, tell them that was the law in states for years before. So now you're past the failure to launch clause, you're 27, you gotta go out and buy health insurance. You're an adult now at 27. So you're shopping the market. They know, the insurance industry, you're not gonna have claims for years. You are the young invincible. We need more of you to drive premiums down, right? So you buy it, it costs you about $68 a month, right? You got a good plan. Here come the liberals without their skulls, just their hearts to legislate, right? Everybody's got to pay the same premium. Now, Mr. 27-year-old has to subsidize Mrs. 62-year-old's premium, right? So what happens to Mr. 27-year-old's nice $68 premium? Do you know the definition of a split second? That's how long it takes that 27-year-old to call his insurance company and terminate his coverage. It takes about 5 seconds more to call all his friends and tell them to cancel too, because they're all getting a $100 to $150 increase monthly in their premiums. Then what happens to the risk pool? Risk pool gets smaller with no more young invincibles to lower premiums. What happens to Mrs. 62-year-old? This is not rocket science, but this is what John Roberts let go forward. You take community rating, you take guaranteed issue, and you give every carrier to buy. And you will subsidize the rest of them. Lastly, and I will close with this. Even if you're not working anymore, you're done. You've got a retirement portfolio, right? Hopefully you've invested conservatively, right? You're relying on your dividends from that income. Do you remember when Nostradamus, which is what I call Henry Waxman, when Nostradamus called John Deere and Caterpillar into the House of Representatives for a public hearing because they were sending information over saying, listen, we ran the numbers. You're going to kill us with this law. You're going to kill us. He said, I don't care. I want you in here with cameras. We're going to run the numbers with you. So all John Deere and Caterpillar did was tell their actuaries and their CPAs, just email this idiot with the numbers. So they did. Anybody ever see that congressional hearing? You know why you never saw it? Because they were right. He canceled it. So Lloyd's of London, one of the most respected actuarial firms in the world, said, I wonder if it's just John Deere and Caterpillar. I mean, it is one law that affects everybody, right? Top-down tyrannical government. Maybe it affects other companies. Let's go out and find out. So they decided to interview 80 of the biggest companies in the nation. Here's the list. Let me read to you what Lloyd's of London said. Starting in 2013, companies that provide prescription drug benefits for retirees under Medicare can no longer deduct this subsidy from their taxes due to the President's federal healthcare overhaul, signed into law March 23rd, 2010. Now, I don't want you to tell me what companies are in your retirement portfolios. I just want you to think as I'm running these numbers. Ready? Walgreens, starting January 1st, 2013, will take a $44 million loss. Okay? That's just one of them. Let's continue, shall we? Pfizer, $270 million loss. Granger, $11 million. Norfolk Southern, $27 million. Ecolab, $5 million. Caterpillar, $90 million. Pepsi, $40 million. Boeing, $150 million. PPG Glass, $85 million. United States Steel, $27 million. AT&T, I'll get to them in a minute. Verizon Communications, $970 million. Prepare to pay more for your cell phone coverage if you're with Verizon. Can you hear me now? Ingersoll Rand, $41 million. Lockheed Martin, $96 million. John Deere, $129.5 million. AK Steel, $31 million. Honeywell, $13 million. Exelon, $65 million. Circle back to AT&T, the granddaddy of them all, $1 billion. Do you think that they just might raise the prices of the products that they offer? You think they might lay some people off, adding to the almost 16% unemployment? See, the president doesn't include U6 mean unemployment. Hasn't for years. We haven't had 8% unemployment in this nation for years. The real number is 16%. Think we'll add a few more? I guarantee you that we will, because the numbers I just gave you are first quarter losses only. Now multiply them by 4. So, the reason I put comedy into my speech is so that I don't find you hanging from the rafters. So I'm going to leave you with some good news. The good news is our founders left us an option to stop tyranny like this. It is now up to us to stop this. How do we stop it? You must support SenateConservatives.com. These are our senatorial candidates running across the nation that have been vetted by the great one, Mark Levin himself, and Jim DeMint, amongst others. These are solid candidates. We have 23 Democrats and 10 Republicans up. We can take the Senate, and we don't need 60 seats. We need 50 plus 1. That's it. You see, we're going to use the same bill they used to shove it down our throats, the reconciliation bill, which only requires 50 plus 1. But unlike them, we're going to do it legally. You see, they did it illegally. There were 3 data houses that were very clear before this law passed that the healthcare law will add hundreds of billions of dollars to our deficit. If you read the reconciliation bill, it's very clear right in the 2nd chapter. You must not use this bill if you are going to add a dime to the deficit. It must be deficit neutral or reduce the deficit. They used that bill knowing that it would add hundreds of billions of dollars to our deficit. That in itself is tyranny, without one Republican vote. And lastly, my friends, we cannot get rid of Obamacare without getting rid of the worst part, the Obama. Thank you for listening.
Steve has agreed to field any questions if anybody has any quick questions for him.
Yes, I'll take questions.
Dick?
First of all, two things.
Yes, sir.
First, I was very upset with people on the other side of the room who didn't know who Richard Foster was.
We know who he is. We know who he is.
Okay. Second thing is, you said the president was the first president who didn't know the meaning of a word. He's the second. There's a guy that had a problem with the word is.
That's right.
Oh, yes, like Willie Clinton. Yes. Don't get me started on that. Are there kids in the room? Yes, sir.
I think that a lot of people on the right are very
Yes,
quick to...
let's ignore the 10th Amendment again. Yes, yes. Thompson, sold.
Who are they going to put in it?
Yes.
Oh, what?
Yeah, right, me. Exactly. SenateConservatives.com. We have to support those candidates. We don't need a ton of them. There's 8 key candidates we want to support. Yes, ma'am.
I received an email and I forwarded it to Terry, and it was saying that the Medicare insurance premiums for future people from Blue Cross Blue Shield from 2012 of $104 to change.
Yeah, it's erroneous.
It's erroneous?
It's erroneous, yes. So is the microchip implants. It's not in there. And I want you all to understand, I hope nobody left, because I want you to understand, I forgot the 5th lie, my fault. The 5th lie is what they're using right now. They're demonizing Paul Ryan, saying he's going to end Medicare as we know it. I want you to understand, when they say the word voucher, right, because Debbie was a man, Sergeant Schultz, she's out there everywhere saying, I did say was a man, Sergeant Schultz. That's right, you can use that. She's saying that they're going to end Medicare as we know it. It's going to cost $6,400 more a year for seniors, and they're using vouchers. Some of these idiots are saying coupons. None of that exists. It's a lie. That was considered in the Ryan Rivlin plan. The new plan is the Ryan Wyden plan. It is a bipartisan plan devised by a far-left liberal from Oregon named Senator Ron Wyden and our own Paul Ryan. They came together, they devised a plan that will save Medicare for future generations. How does it work? No one can hate Paul Ryan's Medicare plan and love Obamacare, because it's a contradiction in terms. Because both plans achieve the same goal by using the same vehicle: federally run, taxpayer subsidized health insurance exchanges. If you're under 55 today, come 2016, Paul Ryan and Ron Wyden offer you an option instead of traditional Medicare. They do not take traditional Medicare away. Traditional Medicare is still available to you. But if you want to, you can purchase Medicare health insurance in the new Paul Ryan Medicare exchanges. Okay? You will be guaranteed the 2 lowest price plans on that Medicare exchange. Why he's doing that? By the way, if you want to buy up, you want a plan that pays your Part A deductible, you want better benefits, you can buy up. But you're guaranteed, regardless of income, the 2 lowest price plans. The reason he's doing that is because he has to do it. The 2012 CMS report, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the latest assessment says in 4 years from today, Medicare's done. Bankrupt, kaput, in 4 years from today. The president sits out there on the stump and says, well, I'm going to keep it till 2023, so vote for me. The only way he keeps it till 2023 is by cutting $716 billion from Medicare. That's how he did it.
That's already broke.
That's already gone. By the way, did anybody know? Anybody know this? 136 billion of the 716 billion was the death of Medicare Advantage, which is the most popular Medicare program in the nation with 4 million seniors on it. They love it because it includes Part D. It's officially called Part C. That was scheduled to be terminated, decimated, on October 2012, this month. Now, the president's advisor came to him and said, Mr. President, if you kill Medicare Advantage, there's 4 million seniors who also vote. You better fix this. So you know what he did all by himself? Another executive order. He took $8 billion from an Obamacare research fund, just transferred it, and put off the death of Medicare Advantage until 2013. Who knew that? Just a handful of people. This should be public knowledge. If Paul Ryan does not win with Mitt Romney, you can kiss Medicare Advantage goodbye. The president is making no plans to save Medicare other than cutting reimbursement ratios to doctors, which means you will get to see what? Less what? Doctors. Next question. Yes, sir.
You mentioned Occupy Wall Street, and
Yes.
within your speech, I do think that a lot of people and politicians on the right have been very quick to dismiss it. I think that maybe if more Tea Partiers actually participated in that movement, then maybe Occupy Wall Street as a whole wouldn't have leaned so much to the left and towards Obama.
Good point. I just debated Occupy Chicago, the 4 leaders of Occupy Chicago, Micah, and I forget the other 3 names, for 18 journalists at the Hilton Garden Inn. This is just last week. And I will tell you that we share certain things with Occupy Chicago, or Occupy the movement. We're upset with crony capitalism, right? We agree with that. There are several things we agree on. It's the solution that we disagree upon, okay? They want what they would describe to us and the journalists, a horizontal democracy. They are pro-democracy. Here's the problem with democracy, okay? We don't live in a democracy. We live in a representative constitutional republic. The problem with a democracy, and I could not get it through these 4 gentlemen's heads, I said, I tried to explain the best I could. I said, me and the 11 journalists on this side of this conference table decide we don't like you, Micah. So we're going to take all your stuff and we're going to string you up by a rope, right? And we can do it because there's enough of us. We are the majority. We are a democracy. He goes, okay. And he goes, go on. I said, if there is no judicial branch, if there is no one there to come in and protect you against the majority, then they will be able to do just that, which is why we have a representative republic, so that we have a judicial branch that can stop the majority from hanging out from the tree. The other problem I have with Occupy, and I asked all 4 of these guys this, and they wouldn't answer until the 3rd time I pressed them. Do you support the violence that your movement has perpetrated on cities all over this nation? The rapes, the destruction of private property, the $21 million it took the taxpayers to clean out Zuccotti Park. And before I asked them that question, the reason I asked it is because they were saying the tyrannical police in New York, they destroyed our private property in Zuccotti Park. Such violence, they said, it's just horrible violence. So I asked him, do you support the violence that you perpetrated on Zuccotti Park? This is what he said, I swear on my children's lives. This is a direct quote. We do not consider violence, destruction of private property, to be violence. That's the quote. We do not consider destruction of private property to be violence. Violence would be if I reach across this table and punched you in the face. That's a quote. And every one of the journalists were like, whoa. And you know what I said? Thank you for proving that what Andrew Breitbart said was the truth. They are about destruction of private property, destruction of our current form of government, and replacing it with something they have no idea what it even is. So those were our problems. We disagree on the solution. We agree on some of the problems. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Why do you think we haven't heard more specifics like what you gave tonight? You know, like even with the debate tomorrow night and stuff, are we going to hear specifics like that, or?
I hope so. I hope Paul Ryan is allowed to speak more than Mitt Romney, just myself. And if Mitt Romney speaks, I hope he's clear. I pray for guidance and wisdom for him. But, you know, a lot of these guys who run for Congress are not public policy experts. They're not even policy wonks. What's wonderful about Paul Ryan is that he is a policy wonk. And he can go through the health care bill better than I can. And so I'm really excited about the addition of Ryan to the Romney camp. Why you're not hearing this in any of this thing I've told you tonight is because the mainstream media is fully compliant with this administration and will not give you any bit of news. And sadly, even our conservative media outlets are much times not giving everything we need to know, like what I've told you this evening. It took 2 years for me to appear on Fox News National. I should have been on 2 years before. Not because I want to be on Fox News, because people need to hear the truth. And it took 2 years and tons of strings to pull to get me in front of a business owner in Naperville holding the healthcare law. right? And going over things that nobody knew. Everyone in this room should know medical loss ratios. Everybody in this room should know about the largest religious lawsuit in U.S. history being filed against the U.S. government because of another one of Kathleen Supercilious's wonderful little thing she wrote. On August 1st, 2011, she decided that it's going to be the law of the land for everyone in America to pay for abortion in their health insurance. Even though the president promised, who? Stupid Stupak from Michigan, executive order, there'll be no abortions. And remember that? Stupid Stupak, the Christian holdout, right? Everybody in this room, we're telling Stupid Stupak, screaming from our homes, hey, dummy! Hey, he's lying. He went with it, the 13 idiots went with him, the blue dog Dems, and we got Obamacare. Sebelius writes in August 1st, 2011, says within 1 year, every American has to pay for abortifacient drugs. Michelle Bachmann of CNN says during the debates, they're going to pay for the morning after pill. They're going to make you do it. Sebelius just wrote the law. CNN said she's crazy, she's local, she's wrong. There's no RU 486 legislation. See how clever CNN is? RU 486 was not in her legislation. What was is Ella and Plan B, two equally deadly abortifacient drugs. And come 2014, thanks to Sebelius, one of those 13,000 new pages, there will be a fund for $1 of every one of the premiums you pay that go to actual physical abortions. People have to understand who put this together. Who's heard of Ezekiel Emanuel?
Rahm Emanuel's brother.
Yes, a few of us, right? Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel believes in something called the complete life system. This is the guy who was one of Obama's chief healthcare czars before it passed. Here's what he believes in, okay? Right here. Down here is the age 0, okay? I call it the Reaper curve, okay? They call it the complete life system. This is what they actually believe in. At age 0, you should receive very little health care because you're fully dependent upon society. You're a burden, right? Up the bell curve, or what I call the Reaper curve, up here at age 35, Mr. Ezekiel Emanuel and the statists like him, the central planners like him, think that you should get the most health care in your life at age 35. Down the curve, you get to where I'm at 45, which strangely this is located at. Have I already been rubbed out? At 45, I'm rapidly losing value to Obama. The amount of health care I should receive decreases greatly. By the time you get down to here to age 65, 70, they believe you should get the same amount of health care that you should have gotten back here at 0, because you're once again a burden on society. This is a president who used to be our senator, who voted to kill the Born Alive Protection Act that protects children of botched abortions and instructs nurses, neonatal nurses, to take that baby, put it in a room until it's died.
Sounds like Nazi Germany.
And not just once, he voted against it 4 times. This is the President of the United States. Add to that IPAD, the Independent Payment Advisory Board. It's being staffed right now with 15 people that the President gets to pick all by himself. Shove them through Reed's Senate and put them on this panel. And this panel is commissioned to cut another $500 billion from the American healthcare system, doing it by what? Further reducing reimbursement ratios. And guess what? If those 15 knuckleheads, none of them are practicing physicians, none of them, if they can't come to a decision to cut that $500 billion, for the first time in U.S. history, it falls to one person to make the cuts. Guess who that is? Kathleen Supercilious. That's right. That's right. This is the kind of tyranny that we are under, and most of us don't even know what's going on. Which is why, now that you do know it, you probably retain maybe 10%, 3% of your lip. Go to my website, which is truthaboutobamacare.com. That is 2.5 years of reading through this tyrannical legislation, breaking it down, so that you have a way to engage the left. And try to do it as often as you can. Before Andrew Breitbart died, what did he teach us? Always carry your sword. What's your sword? Your camera phone, right? You can Google, when you get home, Google "See Stephen Tucker commits homicide." And you'll come to a blog, and on the blog is the author's title. That's what he called it when he saw the video. It It's a 31-minute video of me in front of Congressman Randy Hogan's office debating one of our friends on the left, which I have none. And this is MoveOn.org, and they wouldn't, they were trying to protest Randy Hogan for voting against Obamacare. And so I just went out there, and you'll see me in the beginning, there's a group of them standing. I go, would anybody like to discuss the healthcare law? I mean, you're out here in the rain, you must support this, I'm a citizen journalist. No, thank you. And then one does. And the next 31 minutes is every White House talking point you've heard replaced with actual facts. So you can get to that point where you understand kids could stay on their health insurance plan for years, before the healthcare law passed. They could stay on their parents' plan until 25, 26, 27. I've got them all on my website, every state, every statute. Pre-existing conditions solved with one sentence. Congress created pre-existing conditions. We don't need 2,400 pages. These are the things. And that's why I made this 5-hour drive, and I drive all over the place. Koch brothers don't fund me. Tea Party's broke, as you know, right? Because I want you to be able to know the truth, and then each of you has a circle of influence. Get it out there. Engage the left, because they're winning. They're winning this battle. And they've got huge special interests behind them. And we just have us. That's it. Next question. Yes, sir, in the back. Ma'am, I'm sorry. I thought he was raising his arm. Yes. Yes, SenateConservatives.com.
So is our better hope with a majority of conservatives in the Senate than Romney?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. We can't repeal Obamacare without getting rid of the worst part, which is Obama. So you need a president. You've got to have Romney. Believe me, I was a Newt Gingrich delegate.
But will he, do you really think that Romney will?
Yes. Oh, God, yes. Absolutely. In fact, Mitt Romney has already committed, by introducing competition into the Medicare arena for the first time in history, by having these insurers compete for Medicare business, he has already promised to restore every penny of the $716 billion that was cut from Obamacare. I have full faith in Romney to repeal Obamacare. I do. And I do believe him when he says what he did in Massachusetts was constitutional, because he's right. Was it a disaster? My God, it was a disaster. Yes. But we all can make these little experiments. Romney's experiment was a disaster, right? Ohio's experiment is brilliant. You see, Ohio solved pre-existing conditions a long time ago. Ohio's insurance commissioner says, you come in our state, you're a health insurance company, you want to sell health insurance? You got to give 4% of your block of business to sick people, no questions asked. You need to open your books, no underwriting at all, for 30 days, once a year. And every Ohioan comes in, they get it. Doesn't matter if they got cancer, no, doesn't matter. You know that they have 20 carriers in Ohio? They've never maxed out 4% for every carrier, not even close. United Healthcare fills up their 4%, they give you Humana's number, their competitor. Sick people go there, fill the 4%. Humana to Aetna, Aetna to Cigna, all the way down the line. We could have taken that, spread that across the country. We didn't. We took LagoCare, which is a disaster. So I believe him.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Good, I did my job.
Real quick, before we get out of here. One of the things that's coming up on the November ballot is municipal utility aggregation. And that has to do with the city becoming a bargaining unit for your utilities. The problem is that that's something that the city doesn't need to be involved in. So you'll see some communication coming out about that. We, as an organization, oppose that. Yes, you can save money in it, but you can also save money on your own by going to the utility companies and getting your own deals. Don't forget, if you can, go grab a sign on the way out, one of the vote signs for Get Out the Vote campaign. Next meeting is November 6th on election night. We're going to be here and have the big screen going. And I mentioned getting a hold of the board members. If you have any questions or any problems whatsoever, or just want to get more engaged. And I thought I'd introduce the board members real quick. Dick Foster, Becky Vogel, Sharon Geisy, Kenny Holtz, They'll take the money. John Spake is not here. His brother Tim is here. Well, thanks Tim for helping with the meal tonight. You did slip out. I'm Dan Moosalt. Glenn Ebbing is not here, and Mecky Cozen.
Hello. My name is Jim Mussolino. I'm alderman in the 6th Ward. I was one of those few that voted against the aggregation as a city. I didn't do it for the reason of keeping people from making the vote. I think it should be placed in the voters' hands. The problem is the uneducated voter is going to make the decision. And I'm against it. There's free enterprise out there that can take care of itself. The city wants to demand, or they're going to put everyone on it, and I'm against that. And just remember that there is a motive behind this, and it's to put a feather in somebody's hat. So it's probably somebody running for mayor next time again. So with that, I would encourage all of you to talk with your neighbors about aggregation as a city. And if you have any questions, you can call me. Thank you.
Any questions for any of the board members or anybody else before we get out of here? Yes, sir.
I've got a question and a statement. How many of you know what the Black Regiment was during the Revolutionary War?
How many know what the Black Regiment was during the Revolutionary War?
What the Black Regiment was during the Revolutionary War? I see one hand.
Was that the preachers, wasn't it?
It was pastors,
Yeah, the preachers.
and rabbis. As soon as they gave their last sermon, took off their clerical robe, and underneath was a uniform of a revolutionary officer. They went out and fought and died to give us the right to vote. People say, well, I don't realize that. This Sunday is a very important Sunday, and a lot of people don't know this. But this Sunday is called Freedom Sunday. There are between 6,000 and 10,000 pastors, priests, and rabbis this weekend are going to be taping their sermons and sending them to the IRS. Their sermons are not going to be politically correct. What they are going to do is challenge the 501c3 regulation of the IRS regulations, muzzling the pastors and the preachers. Now, I'm not an ordained minister, I'm a lay minister. So I'm not tied by IRS regulation, but I am trying to encourage people that support these pastors. The biggest problem we have in this country, and this is my humble opinion for what it's worth, I'm 78 years old, is the fact that the pastors and the priests and the rabbis are not standing forth for the principles of our founding fathers. It was just that simple. My name is Norman Schaller. You've probably seen my letters in the Herald Week over the last 15 or so years. I am a political, I should say wild card, I guess. I am politically incorrect. And I'm hoping to stand that way. But I'm going to stand out and say what I think. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Norman. Okay, real quick reminder, this Sunday, 1 to 5 out at the GLB headquarters is the sign party. They're going to get everybody together and take signs out, put them in people's yards that have requested them. If you know somebody that can put a sign in their yard, or if you can't, get a hold of one of the board members or get a hold of the GOP and let them know. This Sunday, 1 to 5, and then right after that, 5 to 7 is the volunteer appreciation mixer. So just hang out and have a good time. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We'll see you on election night.